Welcome back to Amplifying Our Voices. I'm your host, Patty Hayek. In today's episode, I sit down with filmmaker, speaker, and author Denise Soler Cox. She talks about her powerful new book, What Will They Say? In this deeply personal conversation, we explore cultural taboos, healing, identity, and the stories that so many Latinas carry in silence. Denise shares why breaking those silences matter and how embracing our truth can help us step into our power. Let's dive in. Denise, thank you so much for being here. How are you, my friend?
Oh my gosh, I am so excited to talk to you and to hear everything and to talk about all the things.
I've been looking forward to this conversation all week, and I just want to start off by telling you thank you. Thank you for this beautiful gift that you have given us. What will they say? My goodness, I have never felt more seen in a book, seen to the depths of my soul. Girl, you had me crying like in the intro already.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for saying that.
It's
That means so much
absolutely
to me.
so beautiful. Oh my gosh, we have so much to talk about with this book. I am so proud of you because you are doing the thing, girl. You put it all out there.
Whew, I sure did. And every day that passes, I'm like, it's like I have processed this enough to be okay with everything I shared. And then there are like these little remnants where it's not like I'm like, was that a good idea? I just don't know what's coming. You know what I mean? But I very much stand behind what I shared, and we can get into why I chose to share what I chose later if you're curious about that.
Yes, absolutely. Let's get into it. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the why behind this book.
Yeah. So it's funny, you and I met. When I talk about the line of secrets and dreams, it's the line of women that usually wait to talk to me after the film screens or after I give a keynote or both. And you were one of those women. And, one of the women that I would say I kind of a few of the women on Secrets and Dreams, I've actually decided that we're going to be friends. And you're one of those people. And I'll never forget our first conversation. And because I could tell that my film made an impact and it meant the world to me, what you shared with me very candidly and authentically after that. And the book is inspired by conversations like that. And so very specifically, women would wait online and share something that they wanted to do with their life, something amazing that they hadn't yet done. And after seeing the film, they were like, wow, I can see that you did this and you're regular and normal. And so because of that, I feel like I can do it, right? And I would say that's the majority of, those were the dreams, right? When I say secrets and dreams. And then there were some women that shared secrets with me that were closely held secrets, maybe some secrets that they never shared with anyone ever before that moment with me. And I really grappled with that because I felt like I hadn't earned that exchange. I felt like I hadn't given enough. I feel like with some women, we are sensitive and we want to make sure that, that the exchange feels fair. And so when someone shares something really intimate, I think many of us feel like we have to say something similar back, right? And so I felt like I hadn't earned being told these things, and B, I felt very resistant to saying, I know what you're talking about. Everybody knows me too. And I really grappled with that because of the conditioning of our culture. Not to blame it, but to identify the source of it, right? Yes. And I just didn't feel comfortable saying that I had also been through these things until it was just like the dam was breaking. So many women were sharing with me. And at one point I decided I am going to do something with this. If it happens again, I'm going to do something about this because at this point, just the amount of women sharing with me was so large that I'm one of those people that believes in signs. And so I said, this next event, and it was at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York City, And I thought I was going to get away with this of not doing anything about it because no one came up to me afterwards and shared a secret. However, they threw this big fun party after the event and people were dancing. And I actually share about this in the book. People were dancing and we were eating Puerto Rican food and drinking wine and having a great time. And I left the dance floor to sit on a high top table and just take a breather. And two women approached me. And the conversation that ensued included secrets and a request. They basically said, would you ever use your platform to do something about this? Because we need someone to do something about this. That's when I decided I'm going to do something about it. And that is the origin of the book.
That's awesome. And because this was years of those lines of secrets and dreams, right? I mean, this has been going a long time.
Yeah, I've done over 400 events over the last 10 years. And I would say I had the opportunity to write the book, and a publisher approached me to write a book in, I believe it was 2021. But I had previously been working on a potential film about this, but we just couldn't land the story. We couldn't land how to tell the story. And then the opportunity came to write a book. But then I actually had to do the work of writing a proposal, which is kind of like writing a book. I will say after having written a book, it just gets harder. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. The proposal was that stage helped me to decide how I would tell the story. And that was something that we were stumped with a potential documentary about. But took me about 18 months to write a 57-page document. And at the tail end of that, I reached out for help because I just couldn't finish it. And so grateful for that help that I got from a coach. We went through the process of submitting the book for sale, etc. So it was many, many events, many, many conversations. I would say when I think back, I mean, thousands of conversations.
Well, congratulations for putting it in writing. You talk in your book about many cultural taboos. Was there one in particular that was much harder to write?
I would say two that were the hardest. And the first one was in the first chapter. And that chapter, I share a story that is something that I went through at age 9, and is something that I actually didn't know if it really happened because it was one of these memories that gets buried away. And I think on the book, I describe it as, it's like you kind of walk past things, you walk past the shelves of your home, and things are on those shelves and you know that. But this particular thing on the shelf of my memory, I'd never really looked at or examined, taken it off and just said, wow, like looked at the shape, looked at the detail but it was a story that kept repeating in my mind for years, for my whole life since it happened. And I tried to make sense of it on many occasions, but I'd never shared it. And I'd also never written it down before. And so that's actually the first story that I shared in my proposal and on my entire book journey was that story. And the reason why it represents a taboo of, don't talk about the family, don't talk about what happens in this house. And the saying, los trapos sucios, and that everybody knows. And then I recently found out that los trapos sucios in South America is kind of an antiquated saying. I don't know if it's antiquated here in the United States yet, but there's another saying, la procesión va por dentro. And so that's similar meaning, like we basically go through our problems on our own. We don't talk about them and we have to deal with these things by ourselves. So that is the first one. And the hardest one because and it opens up the book because it's basically saying, I recognize I'm breaking one of the biggest taboos right now. And so let's just get this out of the way. And then the second one is about the mother-daughter relationship and the sacredness of that relationship and how the taboo around being a bad daughter and not having a good relationship with your mother. And if you do, not talking about it. And this was one of the most challenging, if not the challenging relationship of my childhood and my adult life. And I found myself resisting talking about it, writing about it. and I didn't want the book to be about it. I can't tell you how many times I was resolved, like, I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to write about this. I don't want the book to be about this, because I didn't want to really come to terms with the truth about that relationship. And so writing the book was deeply, deeply healing for me as I examined that taboo and that relationship and wrote about it in a way to let other women know that they're not alone if they also have a challenging relationship with their mom, but also that there's a light at the end of the tunnel and there's a sense of peace that we can find, even if it remains challenging.
Yes. And I feel like this whole book is de eso no se habla, right? So you talk a lot about that silence and that heavy weight that we carry. And honestly, I believe that we're not meant to carry these things alone because they do get really heavy. What would you say to the reader that what does breaking the silence look like in everyday life?
Yeah. So I look at this like a conversation in two parts. The first part is recognizing that they are not alone. And the purpose of me sharing these stories, I guess one of my fears or concerns, we'll say, about the book is that people might think it's one big trauma dump. And that it is not. It is actually the stories that I tell. I tell many stories in the book. I wouldn't tell any of the stories that were shared with me because those stories were shared in confidence. And so I would never do that.
Right.
However, I chose the stories that I did tell because they were my versions of the stories that were told to me thousands of times. And so I think it's critically important that we know, those of us, well, all women and specifically Latinas, that we are not alone in the struggle and the suffering of the things of the places in our lives that we believe are broken.
Mm-hmm.
Many of these stories are the origin stories to those beliefs that we have that something's wrong with us, let's say. And it's it was and is incredibly important to me that women know that is not a thing. You are not broken. You went through something really difficult. And I have personally found a lot of peace in the stories that were told to me. The gift was over and over and over again that I am not alone. And that was a big part of my healing. That's one, right? And so reading the book, using it to share and talk to at least one person, whether that person is a professional, like a therapist, a healer, a friend, that is essential, right? And then the second part is looking at the taboos and seeing in which ways does my belief in these things affect my life, for better or for worse? But the taboos tend to be negative, right? And so how can we reevaluate and bring forth to the forefront these things and see how they affect our life? And then ultimately bring warmth to those areas. And so in the last chapter, I talk about a concept called thermal equilibrium. It's a concept in physics that my daughter brought home one day. She was, both my daughters, I'm very close to them. And after school one day, my daughter was sharing what she learned, and whatever my kids want to tell me, I'm listening. And so I was either filling the dishwasher or emptying it. I don't know, but my daughter was sitting at the counter and just sharing about her day. And she ended up telling me a story about what she'd learned that day in AP physics. And when I heard the concept, I realized I wanted to use that concept as a framework for healing. And very simply put, the solution is to and not to be reductive, but the solution in the book is to warm up the cold spaces where we feel the most stuck. And we feel the most stuck because there's some part of us that's believing that these taboos are true and that we're broken. And that's just simply not true.
I love that concept too that you use. As I was reading it, I was like, oh my gosh, that's so true. I think you phrase it as kind of like storing it away in a freezer, right? It's there and we just stored it away and we just forgot about it too until, you come back and visit it. Okay, it's there. And then adding that warmth to it. So I love that concept so much.
Thank you.
It's a deep love letter to, I think, everyone.
Thank you.
Is there a taboo that you think holds Latinas specifically back in professional spaces?
Yeah, I would say the taboo, the bájale dos rayitas, the taboo of not standing out and not stepping forward. The biggest saying that a lot of people use is "Cállate, te ves más bonita." That really does capture it. It's so subtle. And it's not solved by saying, oh, just be confident, or that's not how we think here. Please speak up for yourself. Like when you've had a lifetime of being told to tone it down, and then also that we're actually more beautiful when we're quiet. And let's say, a host of other sayings that get passed down. And then we notice our moms and our tias and our older cousins subscribing to those things, regardless of how educated and successful they are. These things transcend education level and success. And how I know that is because I coach these women, right? And so I know this very personally. And then also I speak to them on stages and they come up to me afterwards and share, hey, you know what, despite X, Y, and Z success, I still have the hardest time advocating for myself because it's so internal. Like the internal mechanism is alive and well and working. And, even writing the book, I would share with my husband, I know this is so obviously simple, but I'm literally writing a book called What Will They Say? And so concerned about what people will say about what I wrote.
Right.
I couldn't even get away with I was dealing with the demons as I wrote the book about the demons. There's something I say in the book that's healing collectively has incredible power to it. And we are a collective dominant group, right? We are taught before I. There's something really beautiful about that. And there's also a dark side to that, but there's something really beautiful about knowing that we exist in packs and groups of people. And we can heal best in groups. Healing by yourself, doing, journaling, I think is a very important and to me has been a vital activity. And the most powerful ways in which I've healed has been when I shared what I was going through with one other person, or when I shared what I was going through with a group of friends, trusted friends, where we're all sort of dealing with the same thing. And those have been the most impactful. And so that's the journey. I think the book can spark these conversations, but the book alone won't heal you,
Yes.
The work is with each other. And my greatest hope with the book is that people will have book clubs all over the place and they'll just be sharing and discussing and healing and recognizing, that they're not alone. And to be honest, that is a ginormous first step in healing.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love that so much. A lot of the things that you experience and you call out in the book, I experience as well. So I'm like, is she like my diary? And so that's when I say I just felt so seen. And I have done a lot of healing on my own and done the therapy and done all this shadow work and all these things, right?
Yeah.
But there's this line that you wrote in your book that really touched me where you said, private truth telling heals you. Public truth telling heals the culture. And I'm like, yes, girl, yes. Let's normalize these conversations. And that's exactly why I started this podcast, because I'm so not surface level. Sometimes my brothers be like, it's not that deep. I'm like, but it is. It is. Being machista and, all these ugly things that come with, our culture. I'm like, no, let's talk about it. But no one ever wants to talk about it.
Right.
And when you say that, I'm like, yes, two truths can coexist. We can love our cultura and be proud of where we come from and all the things, the great things that it comes with. And at the same time, we can want to see our cultura progress and leave some of those things that no longer serve us. So I'm like, yes, girl, where do I sign the petitions? Let me be part of this movement. I love this so much.
Thank you. And that's also was a concern writing the book. And it's something that I'm very grateful for my editor, Michelle Edita Mulligan. She was instrumental in helping me have keep the balance in the book, because I had so many strong feelings of my own with my own personal experience with the culture and the ways in which I felt held back by the codes and the rules of the culture. But then compounding that with so many women where I could see, oh my gosh, it's these outdated things. And the thing is, what brought me to these women was a celebration of the culture, was my film being Enya, which in many ways is a celebration of the culture, right? And then what I saw reflected back was so much pain about the dark side, the underbelly of the outdatedness of the culture. And so my feelings were strong for me, but then multiplied by thousands for on behalf of all of these women who I felt were suffering. And so the way I like to say it is we keep our phones plugged in at night so we can get the upgrade, like we don't want to miss the new version. Like my kids are like, oh, do you have the new version of whatever? Because then with the new version of the phone, the apps look different and bobbity bob, right? And so we recognize that we got to keep the phone plugged in so that we can get the upgrade overnight. The same way we can look at the culture the same way. We have to stay plugged in, right, to these conversations, even if they're hard, even if they're, like when somebody says it's not that deep and you're like, oh, but it is, right? So those of us who can see the depth, because some people just aren't wired to see the depth. And then there's the highly sensitive ones like us that can see the depth. And so in many ways, if we feel ready, it's our responsibility to point out the depth and to, oftentimes it means pointing out the painful parts, the parts that people don't want to look at. And so we must stay plugged into that. And then we got to get the upgrade. And the upgrade needs to leave some stuff behind. Some things are old. We don't need that dot matrix printer anymore. There are new ways of doing things and seeing things. And there's a clash because some people think and feel, and it's legit. I can see it. I don't agree with it, but I can see that there might be some things that people feel like, well, if you change that, then where's the culture? Where does that leave the culture? A lot of that is in the roles, and especially the roles that women play. And if we change or modify, give those an upgrade, then how does the whole family unit look? And then what even makes us Latinos anymore if we don't have some of these roles that feel fixed and that don't work for us? And so that's why these conversations are so important to bring to the surface, because without them, we have the things need to change, but then they never do, because after conversation, hopefully comes action, right? And the sky's the limit as far as that's concerned. But the originating moment is with someone just believing that, no, we need to pause this and discuss it.
Yes. I met you through a screening, right, of Being Enya.
Yeah.
You've spent years exploring the duality of being first-gen Latino in America. Is there anything that writing your book deepened your understanding of that duality or any connection you made?
Yeah. I mean, that's such a beautiful question. Yes. One of the things that I realized from writing the book was that I learned when I made the film, I just wanted it to get out there, right? So we interviewed all these people, we put the story together and we pushed it out. And I feel so blessed that it resonated with so many people and that I was able to create a career out of just flying all over the place to screen the film and then eventually become a keynote speaker and continue to talk about the themes that making the film taught me, right? And when I wrote the book, I realized that the conversations that I had with people after seeing the film were just offered tremendous perspective. One is, this is small, but this is interesting. In one section of the book, I talk about where people would place themselves on the line of secrets and dreams. So if you picture getting off a stage and then the first person, that wants to talk, right? They're like, oh my God, I really just wanted you to know, blah, blah, blah. And sometimes it was like, hey, we have to get home to the kids, but we just wanted to say thank you. Can we take a selfie? And I had a couple say, we're literally leaving this event right now to go home and apologize to our kids. Like that really happened at an event because they were being too judgmental to their kids, right? And they realized that after seeing the film. And then there was an event that I did in San Francisco and in other places too, where the last person online was often somebody who wasn't claiming their identity. And so someone who maybe didn't look quote unquote Latino, somebody who was probably more light skinned and didn't have like the traditional stereotypical look of what many people might regard as Latino, right? There was somebody that didn't speak the language well or at all, and potentially wasn't even like out as a Latino in the workplace that I had the event at. This happened multiple times. And it was through writing the book and just recounting all these events, because when you sit down and write, it's wild. Like, I think that when people talk about writing being a sacred practice, that was absolutely my experience. I kind of felt stories came to the surface that had kind of been waiting for me to tell. When we go through a given day, we might have a personal aha, or something might happen and we're like, oh my gosh, just got this insight about something. But it's like a firefly, like it's lit up and then it's gone. And then you're interrupted by your kids and you're like, wait, what was I thinking? Like, it's like a dream that you love and you wanted to remember, but you totally forgot. Right. Like those things like were waiting for me, Yeah. And when I sat at this computer and started typing, these insights and things started coming out. Like they were waiting. And this thing about where someone put themselves online to talk to me was so fascinating. And so when we talk about deepening my understanding of the culture, this is how it affects us professionally. Because I was thinking, wow, these people that put themselves last on this line were often the ones that weren't fluent, very light skinned, didn't claim the culture, or just barely claiming it at work and struggling so much, often crying on my shoulder. And I'm talking about women and men. This happened multiple times. And I thought about them at work, wondering afterwards, how do they show up in meetings? How do they show up? Are they in sales? What jobs do they have? Where else does this hold them back? Because if we look at our identities as a home and our lives as a home, like a house, right? And we think about different rooms of the house, some of the rooms are warm. And those rooms are where things are working and truth is flowing. It's easy for me to tell you that I'm Latina and that my Spanish isn't perfect and I feel safe in this relationship with you. So I'll share that, right? The room with you and I in it is warm. And then there's another room that's cold. And that room is where I don't share my identity. That room is like me at work, let's say, before all of this. And it's actually true. Me at work before all of this, before 10 years ago, didn't tell anybody I was Latina, didn't ever share my perspective as a Latina. Like it was definitely part of my identity that I hid. It wasn't overt, but it was true. Okay. And so that room is cold. And the thing is, so we have cold rooms and warm rooms in our house. And we're at the center of all of our relationships, how we are at work, how we are at home, how we are with friends, how we are as a parent, as a cousin, as a niece, all the different, as a neighbor, right? And the thing is, wherever the cold spaces are on your diagram, let's say you're in the middle and it's like spokes on a wheel. If we're cold here, we're cold in the same spaces professionally. So if we have a hard time sharing ourselves personally, and you don't know that I'm Latina, I never tell you, I never pronounce things correctly. I pronounce my name wrong, stuff like that. I will behave the same way professionally. And cold spaces are stuck spaces. And so if I wait online, but I stay in the back of the line, that's a stuck space, in my opinion, right? Especially when Latinos we are brilliant. We are educated. We have experience. We have so much to offer. We are experts at two different value systems. We should not be waiting at the back of lines, but we are waiting at the back of lines. And it's because of these beliefs around not Latino enough. That's a cold space. That's a stuck space, right? And so we bring that everywhere we go. And so when we think about our advancement, voting, how well we're organized or how not well we're organized, the idea of cold and warm spaces really permeates all of those things. And so that idea, we're not all free until every one of us is free, is hugely true here. And so identifying where are the cold spaces, where are the cold rooms is a critical activity. And while I was writing the book, that became crystal clear. Moments like that, like how people appeared on a line, let's say.
Wow, that's so cool. I can just picture it, happening in real time for you as you were writing, as those, like you said, those stories were literally waiting to be told.
Yes.
Girl, I love this for you. I can just even imagine how healing this was even for you. Oh my goodness. But I want to go back a little bit to how you're talking about that dual identity, because there was this line that you said, you put, I had a hard time with discernment in corporate settings. I shut it off because it was so hard to understand what was going on amid all the lack of authenticity. And I was like, girl.
Trust me, when I wrote that, I was like, should I say this? And
Girl,
I'm like,
yes.
what?
I'm like, you put words to something I could not verbally say. I wouldn't even know have the words to be able to articulate that feeling. And so you were able to put it into words. And I was like, has she been in my mind? Like, what's going on? So when you say these stories, right, you're telling your version of what multiple people have told you.
Yeah.
For me, I am a corporate girly. I'm still in the corporate space, but I am the first in my family to enter this space. So, right, I had no blueprint. I don't know how to behave. I've always been a very observant person. And so I just kind of observe my environment. I'm like, okay, how are these people dressing? Girl, if you would have seen me even the code switching, you would never see me with my hoops, a red lipstick, with my hair, with my curls. Like, it'd be like slick back in a bun. I had collared shirt, like slacks, like new wardrobe. No one even said like, oh, you gotta be fake or be inauthentic or whatever. Now I can be my authentic self, but I still see people just being very surface level.
Yes.
Right? Or inauthentic. And so when you wrote that line, I was like, yes. Thank you for saying what needed to be said.
Thank you. Yeah. It's still, honestly, it's tough for me. I still don't speak corporate speak. My brain just kind of shuts off, and I speak like real human speak, authentic human speak. I felt like I needed a master's in fakeness to get, and I just wasn't willing to pay for that degree, And that's why when I started working on the film, it was set me free, because I had to navigate those spaces before I worked on the film. I was in sales, and which I found jobs in sales were great for me because I could just go do my own thing, be myself, make the sales. And as long as I was making my numbers, people left me alone. Right. But if I was constrained in like an office environment, I just had the hardest time. But when I started working on the film, and I had the chance to only speak to Latinos, speak about things that matter to us as a community, and try to like connect with people who cared about the same things, it was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this whole world was out here. And I'd been delaying this process for so long, but I felt so grateful, and still do, for the last 10 years of my professional life, because it's the first time I ever let myself, I had my own version of curly hair, hoop earrings, and red lipstick. I feel like I can exist exactly how I am. And for me, my red lipstick is my personality, my passion, my enthusiasm, that in some corporate spaces was interpreted as uneducated, not polished, not smart. I often was regarded, or at times I was regarded in a different way than in my upbringing, education, and experience. Like, I surprised a lot of people. And people would say that, like, wow, I didn't know you went to such a great school, or I didn't know that you have X experience. And it's because I was underestimated because of my natural enthusiasm, which I think is very Latino. And that always hurt me in the workplace. So I had to tone that down. And so it felt really good to just let it rip again and let that part of me, my favorite part, let her exist,
Yeah. But don't you think it's crazy though? Because looking back, like, nobody told me that I couldn't be myself, but I just felt like I couldn't be myself. So was it a limiting belief that I had in my head, or what? After years of code switching, it just got exhausting, and I'm getting older. I'm too tired for this crap. And why am I holding like the best parts of me? Which is my Latinidad. So I'm like, no, I'm not doing this anymore. Now show up as my authentic self, but nobody told me that I couldn't. And so, so I always wonder about that.
Yes. Here's my 2 cents on that. I believe there is an untold role. There is an unrevealed sense of we're supposed to behave a certain way in corporate spaces. And that way is not necessarily warm and authentic and, collective. It just isn't. And so when we walk into those spaces, because our parents were mostly just helping, mostly just surviving, right? Especially if your parents are immigrants, they don't have time to teach us, and they actually probably don't have the experience enough to even have the discernment to have taught us this. And so we have to navigate those spaces. And so it is true. Best to blend in, best to have the slicked back hair and to tone it down while we figure out the rules of the game. And then also you have had a certain amount of success where you are. And so there is something to be said for, you know what? I've been here. I've proved myself. Now I'm going to let the real Patty come out. And it is a risk. It is a risk to show up as our true self. There is a price to be paid. And some people do have to pay it. And some people don't, right? Not to sound cliche, but I think the greater risk is losing ourselves and not taking the risk to be ourselves and not finding the places that celebrate who we really are, right? But I don't want to pretend that there isn't a risk, because there is. We're being hunted now in this country. We are not a favored ethnic group, not by a long shot. And so us being free and being in our power, are you kidding me? That's a threat to a lot of people. And the purpose of the book is to remind Latinas of that agency. That is the purpose.
I love that you call that out. And I shared this, I think, publicly on LinkedIn or something, where I was not proud to admit this. It was a long time in my career where I stayed in the Latino closet. I would not expose myself as a Latina because my whole life people thought I was Asian. I use that kind of as my advantage, knowing that well, if people know I'm Mexican, that might not be such a good thing. They might look at me differently. Yeah. So I never really spoke about being Latina or being able to speak Spanish or, my culture, nothing. I just never talked about it. Not because I wasn't proud. Girl, I've always been proud to be Latina, right? Sure. But I kept it hidden for so long. And I know I'm not white passing, but people, I think they knew that I wasn't from here. And so I just kind of let people believe that I was Asian.
Fascinating.
Isn't it?
Yes.
Crazy?
Yep.
All of these things, it's so deeply ingrained in us. And from a very early age, we were taught these things. We are a product of what we saw and what we were told and the environments that we were in.
Yep. Literally surviving. That's, to me, what you shared is to me about the most fundamental thing. Why would you, in an environment where we're not only not accepted, but ridiculed and definitely not promoted and definitely not supported and I know that there are areas where our community is deeply supported, but in broadly speaking, it's scary to be Latino in this country today and yesterday and 10 years ago and on and on and on in our past. And so as a matter of social survival, makes perfect sense that you wouldn't say anything. And then add on top of that, our parents saying, don't make waves, don't stand out, and all of those things. It's of course you wouldn't. Why would you? Why would anybody? Right? But then there's this awakening. You had this awakening. It's still true. There's still a threat, but it's also true that there's so much power to be had and experienced. And I see you experiencing that power every day on LinkedIn. I'm in love and obsessed with the way you express yourself so freely and so powerfully. It's just so inspiring. And you're such a great example of this. I love it.
Thank you. Well, like I said, it's been years of healing and unlearning things that was so conditioned in me. Honestly, I've always been vulnerable since I was a little kid and since I can remember until, the world taught me to turn it off, and now I'm reclaiming it. And that's a reason why I feel so connected to you in this book, because you are really vulnerable and authentic. That's the only version of Denise that I know.
Thank you.
Did writing this book deepen or anything that you learned about being vulnerable?
Yes. And so I'm totally going to cry. There was a point last year when, and I talk about this in the book, when my life kind of fell apart, and it didn't happen last summer. It happened before that, but it went on for about 18 months, and it was pretty devastating for us. And it was our financial life. It had to do with the new political administration, and the budgets that were paying me to speak really just dried up, not overnight, but over time, which was, in my opinion, harder because it left me feeling optimistic when there was nothing to be optimistic about. Everything just kept canceling to the tune of over $200,000 in business. And it just financially devastated me and my family. And we really had to rebuild our self. My husband and I are still pulling ourselves out of it, and we're rebuilding. And while I was dealing with all of this last year, it came to a head when we had to move from our home that we lived in for 6 years and scale down significantly. And there was a point where I was writing the book. Still had a deadline. It didn't matter if my life was a mess. And I was figuring out how to buy groceries. And here I am writing this book. I felt like I had a choice because the way that I describe writing the book is that something else kind of took over at times. And these things that were like waiting at the door, these stories that wanted to be told, and these things that needed to be said were creating like a pressure, right? And so one day I remember being either at the coffee shop or at the library, because that's where I wrote a lot of my book. And I felt like I had a choice, like, okay, either I'm going to go where my hands want me to go right now, right? I'm going to go down this road of being honest about this, or I'm going to hold back. And I was like, you know what? Why hold back? Why hold back now? And I decided just to fully be honest. When you write a book, you get multiple chances to go over the same thing over and over, like the whole entire book. You get multiple chances to go over the whole thing and deepen things and delete things. And so after I made that decision, I just pulled on every thread that I had ignored because I didn't want the reader to know everything, right? And I decided to go deep on all of those areas. And for me and for my own healing, it like healed something about me, or for me, that said, like, if you know everything about me, then you really won't like me, right? That's like a long held belief. And I just decided that was bullshit. And also, I actually really like me. I'm really freaking proud of me. And I am so proud to have written this book, and that my daughters will know, like, this is like the most honest account of my mom's life at the time that she wrote it, right? And it's very, very important to me that I can stand tall and proud in the things that I chose to share, and that in the sharing of those things, I felt an incredible sense of power. And the reason why I'm crying is because it's a very tender spot still, but it doesn't mean that it's not powerful. And my favorite line personally in the book is, we can be both powerful and like a work in progress. Even though I'm still growing, I can still be powerful. Oh, we can both be powerful and unfinished.
Yes.
That's the line. And
Yes.
to me, like, that's like the most important revelation, and the most important lesson I got from the book is I don't need to be perfect. I can hold my power and I can still grow.
Yeah.
So yes, that's the healing that was deepened for me.
That's so beautiful. When I first met you, it was so clear and obvious. Oh, this girl is living in her purpose. You put a line in there that said you had a choice to either keep staying small or to trust that my purpose was bigger than my self-doubt. That line stayed with me, and it reminded me, like, this is exactly, again, why you chose to tell some of these stories and be vulnerable, because you're going against your doubt. Like you were saying, and you're in real time talking about the demons while actually fighting these demons. So I'm so proud.
Thank you.
Book for having the courage and being brave and being a pioneer. Like, because I see you doing it, I'm like, okay, and then I'm going to do it too, because you are empowering many of us to do the same for the greater good of our healing, la cultura, as a collective. So thank you again for this beautiful gift that you have given us. And I hate that we're running out of because I have so many more questions, but I want to make sure that I tell you that
Yeah.
before we end it. And I guess we can, okay, I do want to talk a little bit about the writing of the book and recording. Let's talk about recording
Oh,
the audio.
yes.
I've heard that it's a very intimate experience for authors
Yeah.
because you're literally speaking your story into the world. What was that process like for you? And did anything come up for you?
Yeah, thank you for asking about that. I thought it was a fascinating process. And so for me, I have been pretty busy over the last few months. And when they wanted me to record the book so that it would be ready by the time the book launches on August 18th, we had to be creative. And so I ended up working with a producer that basically let me record the book from here and also from LA, from a hotel room in LA. And it took, I think, 7 days because of the schedule and my speaking and the traveling and all that stuff. And also because of how intense it was. It was hard. It was really hard. And we couldn't get through more than 2 chapters a day because of how intense the content was for me to read. And it was like, I would say from like a technical writer's point of view, it was hard because I was like, damn it, I wish I could have rewritten that. I wish I would have caught this in the copy edit. I just so many times do I wish I could have changed and made something better. And that's just what writing is like. And then from a personal point of view, I was really struck by how hard it was, to go back and read it. One of the things that was really beautiful was the guy that was produced the audio, that I worked with. He and I ended up getting really close because he, when I needed a break or whatever, he would share with me what he related to. And he's not Latino. He's like a white guy from, he lives part-time in LA, part-time in New York, and he's a musician. And he would share with me his own story. I could write a book about what happened in 7 days recording this with an older white guy that really identified with the book so much that it made the experience for me so special and well beyond just, wow, I got a chance to record the book, is I got a chance to record it with someone who was deeply meaningful who is absolutely not in the demo for the book at all, but with whom I developed a relationship with. And now we're friends. Like I was just thinking about him this morning and I was like, oh, I have to text him and, tell him whatever because we just got really close. And that's a testament to the content of the book and really being willing to, it's not necessarily like sharing like war stories more than like what the conversation we're having, like sharing insights and ways in which we have a chance to get to know ourselves and grow and then share. And the thing is that I heard this once and it's so powerful. It's in the sharing that transformation exists. Like I can transform, I can have an aha moment by myself, but really my transformation exists when I share that with you. And that's the gift of being in community at its most rawest form, is that we all get the gift of transformation when we share it, amongst ourselves with each other. So recording the audio gave me an opportunity to see that the book, even though I wrote it to Latinas, they are the number one demo, that really, really it's for human beings.
I love that. That's so beautiful. And I got to say, I'm not surprised by you making friends with funny. But you're right. I mean, when you're the stories that you're sharing, they're not just cultural ones, right? Like you said, they're human, and they can relate to any other culture.
Yes.
And we can end it on this. What do you want readers to walk away with? If you have one message for them, what do you want that message to be?
I would say what I want them to walk away with is you are not broken. And you have power well beyond what you believe, and surround yourself with people who see that power and also who are willing to listen to you when you need to share about your perceived brokenness. So I guess those 3 things.
That was beautiful. Thank you, Denise, for your time. It was such a pleasure talking with you. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, Please subscribe, follow, and share this with someone who might need it. Stay tuned for the next one.